Have you just walked into your PTO closet at school and noticed that there's a whole bunch of old paperwork laying around, and you have maybe file boxes of paperwork or binders of old paperwork, like printed out bank statements and receipts and auditor reports and tax paperwork and all of that good stuff. And maybe it's stuffed into manila envelopes, and it's just, there's a lot of it, and some of it's kind of really damaged, and you're not sure exactly how long you need to be keeping it. Do you need to be keeping it at all? So that's what we're going to talk about today, is exactly how long you need to be keeping the paperwork, because the truth of the matter is that you don't actually have to keep a hold of everything for all time. There are some things, though, that you totally do have to keep. So I would recommend keeping forever any and all paperwork related to how your group was formed, and if you got a special tax status, such as a 501c3, so your origination documents with the determination letter that you get from the IRS. Like, you don't necessarily have to keep the paperwork that's leading up to getting the special status, but once you have that tax exempt status, keep the determination letter, keep your EIN letter, stuff like that. I do believe you're supposed to keep all copies of, or all versions of your bylaws and standing rules. And that's good practice anyway, just to see how your group is evolving. When it comes to the audit, the annual audit that your group is having, hopefully, you don't need to keep everything associated with the audit. So a lot of times in preparation for the audit, the treasurers will go ahead and print out all of the bank statements and maybe receipts that they've gotten electronically and all that jazz, so that they can give a nice big packet to the auditor. Well, you don't have to keep all that supporting documentation. If you have a digital copy, that's as good as having a paper copy. So you can go ahead and get rid of the packet that you give to the auditor, especially if you already have digital copies of that paperwork. So what you want to keep from the annual audit is the auditor's report. But again, you don't have to keep a paper copy of it. So if they send it digitally, you can just keep a digital copy of it. So if you go ahead and you print it out for the records for the year, because a lot of times PTOs should have that on hand, so that if someone wants to look at the audit during the year, that they can see it. So that's a paper copy is the easiest way to make that happen. But then once that year has passed, you can go ahead and recycle that paper copy and just have the digital copy. So this should really cut down on the amount of paperwork that you have to hold on to. You're also supposed to keep a hold of all of your meeting minutes, like forever and all time. But again, you don't have to keep paper copies. So if you have minutes dating back from the beginning of time for your group where they were handwriting minutes, whatever, you have two choices. So you can go ahead and hang on to the paper copy of those minutes, or you can give somebody, maybe the group's historian or the secretary, the task of digitizing those files. So there are a lot of good document scanning programs out there that you can just use with your phone to make happen. But I would actually recommend that, having a digital copy of it versus a paper copy. A lot of times the paperwork that you'll come across in storage in PTO closets, they're not always the best maintained of spaces in the building. So sometimes there's water damage. Certainly there's a lot of dust. They are just kind of icky, and you kind of want to pitch them anyway. So go ahead, and I would just really make a digital copy of them. Yes, it'll take some time, but you don't have to do it all at once, and it can be like a year-long project. So you can get rid of the paper once it's all digitized. So go ahead and do that. The other thing that a lot of PTOs tend to keep copies of are old programs from maybe like a scholarship luncheon, or if you're a PTA, for Founders Day. And yes, there is some historical value for that kind of stuff, but I would only be hanging on to one copy at the very most. You really don't need to hang on to multiple copies. And again, maybe consider digitizing those if you don't already have a digital copy. This really relates to anything, say, within the past 5 to 10 years, you probably have a digital copy. Beyond that, you might only have a paper copy, but it's a really good habit to get into to retain digital copies of all of your paperwork and get your officers and committee chairs used to uploading what they are using and creating through the year into your group's cloud system. So your digital filing system. You can assess whether you really want to hang on to those things. If the paper is mildewy or moldy or just kind of gross, digitize those suckers and let them go. I don't think it's really worth holding on to paper that presents a health hazard like that, even if it has a historical value. That's just me. So yeah, I would just digitize it. I think that way it makes it a lot easier for people to look through as well. You can put it into a photo sharing app. There's lots of different things you could do with it. You could make it into a slideshow and then upload it to your group's YouTube channel. That might be kind of fun to look at scholarship luncheon through the years. You be creative with it. Do what you want with it. It could be really fun, especially if your school or your PTO has an anniversary coming up of like when the school was opened or renovated or when the PTO was founded. You get the idea. Just have fun with it, but definitely look for ways to reduce what you have on hand and don't feel compelled to keep everything. So I hope you enjoyed this video and I will see you in the next one. Want even more guidance on how to be a stronger leader so you can run a better PTO or PTA? All these resources and more are waiting for you at ptoanswers.com.